Hello everyone, and welcome to this, the first episode in our tutorial series where we're going to be making a top-down RPG in Unity. Hopefully you've already been over to itch.io and you have downloaded the asset pack that goes along with this tutorial series. If not, there is a link in the description so that you can go to there and download that pack. If you wanted to work with your own pack though, that's absolutely fine. Everything that you're learning here will of course work with other tile sets as well. Okay, so though we should be ready to go with making our first tile map. What you're going to need to do then is come down to the bottom of Unity and you'll see you've got a folder here called Assets. Make sure that one is highlighted. That is where you're going to be storing pretty much everything for your game. So all of your scripts, all of your images, everything is going to be going into your Assets folder. And everything that you make the game out of usually gets referred to as an asset. First thing we need to do then is we need to bring in our tile sets so that we can make our tile maps. For that, you will need to navigate to where it is that you have installed the Maple Tails asset pack. Perhaps you've put it on the desktop, hopefully you've put it somewhere where you can find it relatively easily and you've unpacked it so that you can get into it. Once inside, you should see there are these 4 folders, and if we go into tile sets, we can see that we have got 3 sets of tiles ready and waiting for us, and we're going to need all of them. So we can just highlight all of these and then drag and drop them straight into our assets folder. Give it a moment and they will load in for us. Then we can just close this down. Okay, so we've got our assets now in. We've got each of our tile sets, but we can't actually use them yet. If we click on one, so if we click on the snow tile set, we can see that in the inspector over on the right hand side, a little window that funnily enough lets you inspect each of the assets. If we make that a little bit bigger, it's giving us some information. So it's talking about its import settings, and it's giving us this, but I can't see my tiles at the moment. I'd like to be able to see what's going on. To do that though, we need to bring up the sprite editor. For that, if you go to the window, little tab up at the top of the screen, open that up, go down to 2D, you'll see that here we have the option now to open up the sprite editor. Click on that and it'll pop open in a window. If you happen to be in the lucky position of having a million monitors, then you can spread these windows out so that they're easy to see. On the other hand, if you're, normal and only have 1 or 2 monitors, then these can become quite annoying, and most people will dock them instead. So to do that, what you can do is you can grab hold of the tab where it says Sprite Editor, drag that, and I like to put it next to Game just up here. So you can drag it and drop it. Now, these are all part of the same window, and they can just be flipped between. So this is now showing us our snow tile, and that looks like a mess, to be honest. It is incredibly blurry, and that's because these import settings at the moment are wrong for the type of images that we're working with. So, first of all, we can see that Unity has assumed this is Sprite 2D and UI. Correct, let's come to that conclusion because of course we are using the 2D core template, so it assumed it's going to be 2D stuff that we're working with. Well done, Unity. It's also assumed that the sprite is a multiple, which is true. In this instance, we have in fact got 48 sprites in here. We can see that they're all in there, but Unity isn't cutting them up correctly, but that's fine, we'll come to that in just a second. For now, we'll fix the blur. We can also see that it thinks there's 100 pixels per unit, which is wrong. We are working on a 16 by 16 scale, so we need to change this to 16. The mesh type is tight, that's fine. We've got no need to be extruding edges, and we're not generating physics shapes. That doesn't need to change at all, it can just stay ticked. So the next thing we need to change then is if we come down to our filter mode. This is where it's trying to work out how much it's going to be blending. Well, we don't want it to blend at all. We want it to be completely pointy so that when we zoom in, everything remains as a block. This is, after all, pixel art. Next, if we come down to our defaults, maximum size can stay the same unless you are working with absolutely huge images. For example, this is a game I'm working on at the moment. The background is one great big piece, so again, I've had to make the size absolutely massive. In general, though, this is something you don't need to change unless you're working with huge pieces. Little ones like this, it can stay exactly as it is. Compression, though, at the moment we are on normal quality. Nope, we don't want it to compress at all. Remember that we're only working in 16 by 16 pixels. Everything is already really, really minute. We don't want there to be any compression. It is going to be on none. Then when we hit apply, ta-da! mysteriously, all of our lovely little pixels are now showing nice and sharp. We can zoom in with the scroll button and we can see that everything is looking absolutely crisp, just as we want it. So the only problem we've got now then is the fact that Unity thinks that is one gigantic tile, so is this and so is this, which definitely isn't the case. And to fix that then, what we need to do is come up to our sprite editor, where we can make changes to the sprite itself, and go to where it says slice and hit the drop down. So we can see at the moment it's automatically slicing it up, and that's why it's making the problem. We don't want it to do it automatically, we want to tell it what to do. Because we know exactly what size we're working with a 16 by 16, we can create a grid by cell size. So if we click on that, then we can say, definitely not going to be 64, we are 16 by 16. We can see now that all of these red lines in here, showing where our sprites are going to get sliced, is cutting it up nice and neatly, all into the squares that we want. So we can say, yep, thank you very much, slice. Now when we get rid of that and we come off to it, we can see all of our little individual tiles have been cut up nicely for us. Great, so they'll all work together. Now we just need to do that for the other ones as well. Before you click away from this, make sure you do hit apply, so that this actually gets applied onto the sprite itself. And now if you come down again to the assets, when you hit this little triangle just to the right of it, you'll see that this is where it's cut up all of those tiles for us. If we just go back to one we haven't worked with yet, yep, there's the giant Unity tiles that we already knew were wrong. So what we'll do is we'll do exactly the same thing for our dirt tile set. Again, so sprites is fine, multiple is fine, 100 needs to be 16. We're staying tight, we're staying warm, we're staying clamped, but we are going to point, and we're going to keep the size the same, but the compression needs to be none. Great, apply. Here we go, nice and sharp, and again we're going to slice. We're going to do it by cell size. It has remembered what we did last time, thank you Unity, so we can just say slice, and there we go. Nicely done, apply. We can then do exactly the same thing for the C tiles down at the bottom. There's only actually 2 here rather than the larger ones. We're still going to have to do the import settings though. So again, we're still a multiple, we're still 16. We'll change our filter mode to point and our quality to none. Our compression quality that was, and apply. There we go, nice and sharp. We're very zoomed in obviously at the moment because this is a much smaller sprite, but it still needs to be sliced because it thinks it's just one. Slicing it 16 by 16, slice for us, and apply. There we go, we now have 2 tiles. And from here then, we now have each of our tile sets cut up so that they are ready to be used in a tile map, which we will create next. From here then, we've got our tile set up, it's time to actually make our tile map. Now if we just come over to the right hand side to the hierarchy, so this is where Unity is storing all of the information about different scenes within our game, we can see at the moment we are working on the sample scene. If you right click on that, the first thing you'll notice is that we can't actually make any real changes to it from here. We can't change its name, for example, which is what I want to do. If we come down to our assets folder though, you'll notice that Unity automatically made us a little scenes folder down at the bottom. And if we double click on that, there's our scene. Sample scene, sample scene. This is where it's going to be storing the scenes for us. And from here, we can right click on it and change its name. I'm going to call it Village, as that's what I'm going to be making in this scene eventually. Once I've done that and we click enter, it will change up at the top as well, as we can see. So from here then, we can start to create our tile map. What you'll need to do is, with your cursor in the hierarchy, right click and then go down to 2D object, go down to tile map, and then we're going to be selecting one of these options. Which one you need will depend on the type of game you're making, but basically you'll probably know whether you're making a game with hexagonal tiles and you'll know whether or not it's isometric, and as long as it isn't one of them, you're going to be wanting rectangular even if your tiles are actually square. So if we select that then, here we go, this is the start of our tile map. I'm going to name this the sea, because funnily enough, that's what it's going to contain. This is going to be our background. Once the tile map is in place, we then need to be able to work on it somehow, but again, I can't really see any way that I can do that. And that's because at the moment we can't see the tile palette, which is how we would be painting our tiles on. To see the tile palette then, again, we need to come up to the window, up at the top, and then if we scroll down to 2D again, we can see that tile palette sits just underneath the sprite editor. Click on that. Again, you'll probably find out it comes up in a window. Mine has randomly put it on my other monitor, but I can drag it over, I can place it on here, and again, I can dock it somewhere. In this case, I'm going to put it up here, just next to the inspector. Bloop, just there again, so that they're nice and easy to go between, and they're not going to be getting in the way of anything. From here then, if we take a closer look at our tile palette that we've just brought up, we can see that it's already brought our C map over for us. So this is the one that we made on our tile map, and there it is. And if we go on the drop down, at the moment that's the only option because it's the only one that we have made. Underneath that though, we can see that we have got the create new tile palette, which we can do, thankfully Unity tells us, by simply dragging over our sprites. So if we go back to our assets, we can find our C tiles, grab hold of them, and we can just drag them straight over and pop them into this box somewhere. As soon as you do that, you'll get a little pop-up to say, where would you like to save this map? For now, we're just going to put it straight into the assets folder. It's asking us to select a folder. We're already in here. In fact, what we'll do while we're here is we'll make a TileMaps folder for it. Let's give them a home. Let's try to be organized from the beginning. So if we click on our TileMaps folder, let's say select that one. Now it's going to start saving things for us into the folder. We can know where they are. If we have a look on our assets down the bottom, there it is. There's the little folder that we just made, and we can double click on that, and here's our map, and here are the tiles. But if we come back over to our tile palette then, I can extend this out a little bit so that we can see what we're doing. Here are our two tiles that we're able to draw with. And if I come over to our scene, selected from up here on the top of this window, we can see that this is where the tile is. So I can go bloop, 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 and I've made a few tiles on our tile map. At the moment we can't see the grid, which is a little bit annoying. But if you just come over to this box and then press that one, it'll show the grid for you so that we can see where we can work with. Now, if we just have a little look at the symbols in a row up at the top of our tile palette, we can see that this works very much like any other drawing program really. Down here on the tile palette, this is where we select which tile we want to work with. And these symbols suggest how we want to work with it. So this first symbol here, this is our paintbrush. It is just drawing one little individual tile at a time. Great for detailed work, pretty useless if you want to do something big. Next to that then, we have the box tool, which quite literally lets us draw a box, and then that's just going to fill in with the tile that we've got selected. So we can just make a little bit of a background in that way. Or, next to that then, we've got the picker tool, so that's if you wanted to select an individual tile from somewhere. Doesn't really matter in this instance, because those ones are all the same. We've also got the erase tool next to that, if I actually wanted that to be quite a neat square, not something that looks all scruffy. Then we could go through that and carefully remove them all. And then we've got the flood tool next to that, where again, it'll just try and fill in a big area for you. If you've got, like, filling in little spaces or anything like that, it's useful for doing that. And we've also got it if you want to be able to rotate your individual tiles around. Again, these ones are so similar, there's not much point in doing that. But that'll do for a little bit of a background for now. We can see that it is extremely repetitive, and what you can do is bring in other tiles, for example, and then fill in little patches so that it doesn't look quite so repetitive. In this instance, because these ones are kind of the same, it's a little bit of a pick one or the other. But that will do for a background. Background doesn't need to be anything particularly interesting. If we come back over to the inspector though, and we go back and select our C again, one thing which I do want to change about this, you can see that it's all been highlighted, is I want to change what layer it is sitting on. With this being a background, I want to make sure that this stays right at the back, that nothing is ever going to go behind it. For that reason, where it says order in layer, I'm going to put a -10. And you'll see that later on we're going to make the other layers slightly different from that because they're going to want to sit on top. For now though, just change that one to -10 just to make sure that it sits at the back. From here then, we now need to make a new map, because we're certainly not going to be walking around or making a village on the sea. We need to make the snow. So if we go back to our tile palette, and we go to where it says sea, we can click on the drop down and we can say, make a new tile map. And we're going to make a new rectangular tile map. Click on that one, and you'll see that it's created underneath the sea on the other side. We can right click on that, rename it, and this time we're going to call it the snow. There we go, and you can see that it is renamed on this side as well. And so now this drop-down contains both the sea and the snow, and it is telling you which one you are working on at the moment. Really important, keep an eye on that one. I can guarantee you everyone has drawn on the wrong layer, and it's really annoying when you have to redo it. Keep an eye on which layer you are working on. So, next thing we want to do then is create our snow palette. We could put it into the same palette next to the sea. We're not going to because, again, it just gets confusing if you're accidentally picking up the wrong tiles, so we will make a nice new palette for it. We're going to come down to Create New Tile Palette, click, and we're going to call this one Snow. There we go, it's going to be a grid. It can work with the same automatic cell size, it's working out how big they are just fine for us at this point, and we're going to hit Create. And of course, it's going to want us to save it. Again, selecting our folder for the tile maps so that we can keep everything together, we'll just pop everything in there and select. So here is our snow palette. Funnily enough, it's got nothing in it because again, we need to drag over our tiles. So grab your snow tile set and grab that one, drag it over and drop this one now into the snow palette. And again, you're going to have to save this one into your tile maps folder. Select and it'll save in there. If we now have a look in our tile maps folder, what we should be able to see is that it is saving everything in here. We can see here are the tiles, here's the snow one that we've just created. It's all being put into one place, which is nice and easy. But here we are on our snow layer, and as you can see, we have got an awful lot more tiles this time, because these all need to fit together. And what we can do then is we can use our paintbrush tool up at the top, and we're just going to start drawing in some shapes. Get an idea of what we want our tile map to look like. There. Don't think that's too bad for a little island for our little village to be on. That'll be fine. One thing which I have noticed in here is that if we look at our drop down, we can see at the moment we have a choice between our palettes of snow and new tile palette. New tile palette is because we didn't rename that one. If we come down into our assets and we have a look in our tile maps folder, double click on that one, there's new tile palette showing our sea tiles. It should clearly be called sea. So what we can do in this folder, we can right click it, we can go to rename, and we're just going to call it the sea. Now that will change up here as well. So when we have a look between our palettes, they are called snow and sea, which is considerably more descriptive than new tile palette. From here then, the last thing to do is create a tile map for the dirt. So we'll come over to our drop down of all of our tile maps, click on that, say we want to create a new tile map. We're going to be creating a new rectangular tile map, which again we'll add into our list on this side. We can right click on that, rename it, and we're going to be calling it dirt. And that will now have also changed the name on this side. We're also going to be needing a new tile palette for that one, so again, we will create a new tile palette, calling it, funnily enough, dirt. Dirt, not drit. We will create that one automatically, and we'll save that into exactly the same folder as before. And again, we are going to need to come back to our assets and drag over the dirt tile set. And we'll save that into tile maps as well. From here then, you can just create a little bit of dirt. This is a little bit of a more challenging one because it's going to depend on where you put fences and things. So for now, I would just put down a few bits and pieces and then we'll move them around later on as the world develops. And for now, I think that's all I'm going to put in there. I reckon I'm going to have a house up here and I reckon I'm going to have a house over here somewhere. But as I say, I don't know where they're going to go yet until I start building them. So for now, as long as the palette and the tiles and the map is made, we will be good to go when we're ready to develop a little bit more. Last thing we need to do then is we just need to come over to our maps on the side, have a look at them in the inspector, and you remember how we set our order in layers. So at the moment we've got the sea to -10. What we want to do is make our snow -9. Then we're going to make our dirt -8. And the reason why we're doing this is because it means that they are always going to sit on top of each other in the right order. For example, if I came to my sea, and I said, do you know what, it's actually -7. Why not? You can see immediately, oh, they've gone. What's happened? They've disappeared. Oh no, I'll never see them again. Well, they're clearly still there because I can still highlight them. They're just hidden now behind the sea because the background is too far forward. So get back to -10 with you. This way we're going to be using orders and layers and sorting, which we will go through in much more information in a future episode. Now we just want to make sure that everything is in the right order, and we're going to use this as a way to do so. But there we go, we have got our tile maps and our tile palettes all set up. Everything is neatly distinguished from each other so that they're all very easy to work with individually, and we're slightly less likely to get them mixed up. Great. For now though, I think I'm going to call that a day on this episode. We've got the tile map set up. Next time we're going to be taking a look at bringing in a character so that we can set them up to animate and walk around this little island so that we can see where things are and get a character set up. But for now, I'm going to say toodaloo. I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye!